Is it bad for a game's main character to be far stronger than their allies? The old me would have said yes. Or is it the young me? Regardless, the current me says it depends. I still don't like when the main character is overpowered just because they're given better, stronger abilities than everyone else. For example, I largely stopped playing as Velvet partway through Tales of Berseria because her break soul was broken as fuck. Fortunately, the game had other characters that were plenty fun to play as, but this video isn't about Berseria. In the Persona games, at least since 3, the main character is designed to be unique, and that I don't necessarily have a problem with. The main thing that sets Joker apart from the other Phantom Thieves is the huge amount of versatility he has due to his ability to equip different personas. I have no problem with this. Joker being special in this way is part of the story, and given that Joker's always in your party anyway, being more powerful than the rest of the playable cast doesn't really cause any issues balance-wise. I also wouldn't want to manage a dozen personas on 7 different characters. One is plenty. And if they could all use from the same pool, then all uniqueness and personality in combat is lost. The only thing I'd really like to see changed in this regard would be to add a little more versatility to the rest of the party. I mean, have you considered that in terms of overall skill count, Joker can potentially double the rest of the party combined, and he can quadruple the rest of the active party? I don't mind Joker being special, but that's a bit much for my taste. I will say though, the ability to swap party members mid-fight in Persona 5 alleviates the other character's lack of versatility quite a bit. At the very least, I'm never stuck in a fight with a character that's useless, or worse, a liability. But I would still like Joker's friends to have a little more to them. I think my favorite way to go about giving the rest of the party more versatility would be to let each of them switch between their 2 personas. Like, when they reach max confidant, instead of evolving their persona like a Pokemon, have them acquire a new one. Aside from giving them twice as many total skill slots, I think this could be used as a cool way to reflect their growth as a character. With Ryuji, for instance, make Captain Kid super aggressive. Give him high strength and low agility, perhaps even more so than he currently has. For his physical skills, give him all skills with a random component, like Myriad Slashes and Rampage, and perhaps something akin to Anger Hit from the Devil Survivor games. For his electric skills, only give him Target All skills to show that he's wasteful and unrefined. Instead of Tarukaja skills, give him Revolution, and perhaps Stagnant Air to show how reckless he can be. Then, when he awakens to Satan Taisei, he can gain a whole new set of skills that are more strategic. Here he can have his Tarukaja skills, and perhaps Rebellion to play against Revolution. He can have his single target electric skills, and perhaps a bit more magic and a bit less strength on this persona. And definitely more agility than Kid. Satan Taisei can learn God's Hand, while Kid gets this skill, and while Kid may have more strength than Satan Taisei, the latter could be given something like Apt Pupil. Personally, I think the second persona symbolizing the character's growth like this would be way more interesting than, here, have an evade skill. Plus it could help fill out the elements. On doesn't get any physical skills, so give Hecate light skills. And give Kamu Susanoo curse skills, cause Yusuke needs something. Now I'm guessing some people are probably complaining about how only the wild card is supposed to have the power to command multiple personas. Personally, I don't fucking care. The wild card using hundreds of personas compared to everyone else's 2 is still plenty special as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the others already have 2, they just have to replace one with the other. Would it really be that lore-shattering to say the others could don their old masks even after growing and evolving their primary persona? And if it really is that big of a deal for some reason, can we at least give the evolved persona like 4 extra skill slots or something? Anyway, while I would like some more versatility outside of the main character, it's admittedly not that big of a deal. I mean, hell, at least I got to control the rest of my party, right? In case anyone is unaware, back in Persona 3 you were only able to give direct commands to the main character. Everyone else acted according to their AI. Your only means of affecting their actions was to assign one of a small handful of available AI types. This was stupid. Clearly though, they've already realized this, as evidenced by the inclusion of a direct command AI in 4 and 5. Also, I'm sure there are at least a couple people out there who like Persona 3 style, and that's totally fine. I have no issue with the AI settings still being available for those who like them, but I still think it's stupid as fuck to force that shit on everyone. Anyway, the reason I bring this up, despite it already having been fixed, is because I actually kinda like the idea behind it. That, of course, doesn't excuse the lazy, sloppy, and all-around terrible execution, but execution can be fixed. I suppose I should mention though that I never actually played Persona 3 until the portable version. So while I can't actually say firsthand that the system was bad, I can say that the reason I didn't play the original Persona 3 is because not being able to control my party sounded awful. And the majority of what I read about it online seemed to agree. But as I was saying, I am intrigued by the idea of a role-playing game really trying to put you into the role of the main character, rather than playing as some fourth wall force that magically controls the entire party. Persona 3 actually tries to reinforce this with all kinds of terrible design decisions, like only letting you equip your allies by directly talking to them. Of course, they throw the whole concept right out the fucking window when it comes to the narrative, but I've already expressed my thoughts on that. Focusing on battle though, I think there's an interesting middle ground to explore. Instead of giving you no control over your allies, why not let you give them commands that they can ignore? Tell Ryuji to throw out a life stone? Fuck that, he wants to hit something. Tell him to hit something though, and he doesn't really care who or with what, he's on it. With this kind of system, learning your allies' personalities in battle and knowing what commands they're likely to ignore is a skill you can develop. This would also lend itself quite nicely to the confidant system. The higher confidant level an ally has, the more likely they are to listen to you. This way, you still get the feeling of being the main character and giving orders to your allies, while being much less frustrating and shitty gameplay-wise. Now, the last aspect of the main character's uniqueness I wish to discuss is the condition for triggering a game over: Joker falling in battle. Normally, I hate this shit, like in Final Fantasy XIII. Hell, in that game it's not even the main character, it's whoever you happen to be controlling, which makes no fucking sense. In Persona 5 though, I definitely hate it less. Still hate it, but it's definitely done better here than in most games I've seen it in. This is because the game provides plenty of counterplay potential, like your allies sometimes stepping in front of a fatal blow, and the fact that you have significant control over what elements the main character is weak to. Still, in a game where one misstep, or in some cases just a bit of bad luck, can quickly lead to someone dying, punishing you so disproportionately when the poor bastard happens to be the main character still just feels kinda shitty. As such, this mechanic should simply be removed, and the game over condition should be a full party wipe. Well, that's what I want to say. It's certainly my personal preference on the matter, but I suppose I should try to be a bit less biased. Since this is a mechanic I've actually seen a fair number of people defend, I decided to try a bit of that research thing and read a few discussions on the topic. Probably should have done a bunch more of that in general for these videos, but Anyway, I tried to find some good arguments, but first a bad argument. In discussions specifically about Persona 5, I saw a lot of people making arguments akin to, that would just make the game even easier. These people are idiots. Obviously the game could be rebalanced to accommodate the new loss condition, so I'm not going to talk about that argument anymore. Just thought I should bring it up because it was bafflingly common. Fair's fair though, so I'll also say that a weak but common argument against the mechanic was that it doesn't logically make sense. I suppose there's something to this argument as the game is currently, and most of the attempts to explain why Joker dying should have different consequences than the rest of the party dying were laughably forced. Problem though is that given the game's setting, a story reason for the mechanic could easily be contrived. So really, this is an argument that Joker falling shouldn't be a game over, or that Morgana should spew a few lines of dialogue about how because Joker is special, his persona will consume his soul if he loses consciousness or some shit. I'm sure the actual writers could come up with something better, but point is, it wouldn't be that hard to give a story reason for it. On top of that, I'm generally okay with a little mechanics narrative disconnect if it makes for better gameplay. So, gameplay. As I said, when deciding between these two loss conditions, how difficult you want the game to be is irrelevant. What is relevant, though, is the style of difficulty. This is a point that seemed to elude a lot of people in the discussions I read, but one of the best arguments for the mechanic that I saw was along the lines of, I like the tension that comes from knowing I could game over at almost any time, and if that means there will occasionally be unavoidable losses, then so be it. Sadly, they then went on to belittle anyone who disagreed with them by calling them pathetic crybabies that need to get good, but jackassery aside, it was a fair point. I find it personally uncompelling, but I can respect it as a matter of preference. And considering that led me to try and think deeper about the differences in the types of difficulty these mechanics create. My first thought was that I don't like the main character game over because it makes the difficulty luck-based. But there has to be some elements of randomness. This is a turn-based game with zero mechanical skills in battle, so without any random elements, every battle against the same set of enemies could be played out the exact same way, and that wouldn't be very fun. Ultimately, what I think this comes down to for me is that with the main character game over, there's often no time to react to the randomness. See, if an enemy gets a random crit or some other something causes one or two party members to drop, now I'm in a tough situation where I need to consider what I can do to recover. Who's still up? What means do I have to revive? Do I need to use a rare or expensive item? Can I kill the enemies before they finish the rest of the party? This makes for a tense and engaging moment. With Joker though, it's often more along the lines of everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, Joker's dead. There's no reacting to that. Now, it's possible to protect against that, sure. In the latter half of Persona 5, there's very little risk of a game over, at least outside of bosses, due to the many tools you have for protecting Joker. But for the most part, Joker's either in danger of going from full to dead without the player having the chance to press a single button, or there's virtually no danger at all. Either way, I'm not a fan. But then, if what I really don't like is that style of difficulty, is that really intrinsically tied to main character game overs? Obviously that type of instant loss can happen with full party game overs too. Hell, one of the few, if not only game overs I did get in the latter half of Persona 5 is when some enemies with Abysmal Surge successfully inflicted my entire party with despair. Much like Joker crits in the early game, all I could do was put my controller down and flip off the TV. That aside, the real problem here is the combination of main character game overs and health bars that can be easily filled or emptied in a single turn. It's this combination of things that creates the far too common possibility of instant losses. Until the game becomes so easy that there's virtually no chance of losing. This means, in order to have main character game overs with far fewer instant losses, you would need significantly less volatile health bars. And while that could be interesting to see, it would also require pretty much a full overhaul of the battle system. And that is why, after all my research, I personally believe Persona 5 would have been better off without Joker falling being the sole game over condition. One last argument I'd like to briefly address is that the rest of your party wouldn't know what to do without Joker. As ridiculous as it is to think the rest of the Phantom Thieves would piss themselves in the fetal position the moment Joker falls, this is an interesting consideration in conjunction with the stuff about you playing specifically as Joker. Obviously Joker can't give his allies orders when he's unconscious, so what if, instead of an immediate game over when the main character goes down, you instead lose control? You're left to just watch and hope your allies can make it through the fight without you. Or maybe you don't even get to watch. Maybe blood runs down the screen as it fades to black. Then after a few seconds, you'll be staring at a game over screen, a victory screen, or you'll be back on your feet as your allies revive you. All the thematic flair of the instant game over, now with 90% less bullshit. So what do you think? Like main characters being unique and overpowered compared to their allies? Want your allies to be a little less lame in comparison? Think my ideas are even stupider than Persona 3's dumb fuckery? Or are you one of the few that thinks Persona 3 got it right? Like your game over is sudden and occasionally unavoidable? Got any good arguments why that I didn't address here? Let me know and have an awesome day. Morgana gives Joker his codename Joker because Joker is their, quote, trump card when it comes to fighting strength. Problem is, he does this before Joker demonstrates any special abilities. In fact, it's literally 5 minutes later that Joker first recruits a new persona. Couldn't the codename dialogue have been moved to be part of that scene so that it, made sense?